Welcome everyone. Hello. Dan? Hi, Danielle. Oh, there we go. Hi, everyone. Hi. Welcome. So beautiful to see you all again. Always touches my heart when I get here and I get to see everyone. So I'd like to welcome you to our 10th annual butterfly release. Can you believe that? 10 years. Amazing. A couple of housekeeping items to start. We have washrooms if you need them. They're in the senior center. Thank you to the senior center for letting us use their space again this year. If you go in through the porch, there will be a door that you go through and your washrooms will be on the left. Okay? If you're looking for washrooms. I'm going to introduce Jenna. She's going to do a couple of housekeeping chores too, and then we'll start our program. But I just wanted to say thank you all for coming, for supporting the hospice, and for being here for our 10th butterfly release. It is so wonderful to see you all, and such a gift to have been a part of so many of your lives.
I'm much shorter than Delana here. So we'd really like to thank the Yo-Yo Mamas for being here. There are musicians today, and a special shout out to Kirsten Wayman, the guest violinist. She'll be giving us a beautiful solo when we release the butterflies today. Thank you to Stan and Sherry. If they can give a wave, Stan and Sherry, who are doing our sound system, and they've done it for many years. And also, I'd just like to point everyone's attention. Oh, we did. See, I don't even know what I'm doing. Come here, Aaron. Welcome, Aaron.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is truly a privilege to be with you today on behalf of the Foundation. As many of you know, the St. Francis Valley Healthcare Foundation works in close partnership with our community to support the essential equipment and program needs of three vital healthcare organizations: Madawaska Valley Hospice Palliative Care, Valley Manor, and St. Francis Memorial Hospital. This event is a meaningful and heartfelt tradition. It offers a moment for remembrance, reflection, and connection, and it wouldn't be possible without the incredible support of our sponsors. We would like to extend our sincere thanks to CO Country Market, Barry's Bay Royal Canadian Legion, Madawaska Valley Lions Club, Hubner Funeral Home, Campbell Monument, Opeongo Senior Center, Grace Monuments, and an anonymous sponsor. Just thank you so much for making this beautiful event possible. Let's give them a little hand. And finally, we'd like to extend our thanks to you, each and every one of you, for being here today. Whether you are here to honor a loved one, support hospice care, or both, your presence truly matters. Your continued generosity helps ensure that MV Hospice can provide comfort, dignity, and care to individuals and families navigating end-of-life journey. Thank you again so much for being a part of this very special day.
Okay, now it's my part. Sorry. So I'd like to have everyone sort of focus at the back and see that phone, and you might wonder what that phone is. So I'd like to just take a few minutes here and draw your attention to our beautiful addition to this park, the wind phone. Let me explain. The wind phone began in Japan in 2010 when Ataru Sasaki, a garden designer, built a phone booth in his yard so he could talk with a deceased relative. Months later, the Fukushima earthquake and tsunami hit. In a matter of minutes, more than 20,000 people died. Sasaki opened the phone booth to his neighbors who urgently needed a place to express their grief. Word spread, and soon people came on a pilgrimage from around Japan to speak through the phone of the wind to those that they love. There are thousands of wind phones located around the world, including another one in just Kilu Pathways Park. Thank you to Constance and Keith Van Hoof for its beautiful construction. Constance, do you want to come up and say hello?
There she is. Oh, of course I do. I didn't say hello, but I will anyway.
Constance and Keith put so much love and sweat into this wind phone. Constance works really hard with our caregiver support program at Madawaska Valley Hospice, yet she still found the time to go home and make a wind phone. So thank you very much. Thank you to our generous rotary phone, because we all know that those aren't exactly in use anymore. So they're a little hard to find. So thank you to our donors who donated phones. Thank you to Leanne Dupuis for engraving our sign with our QR code, so you can scan the QR code to see what it is, learn more. And of course, the Madawaska Valley Township staff and council who approved our request. So I hope everyone's able to take a look at that later and maybe come back privately to reflect.
I'm going to introduce Julie Keon. For those of you who were here last year, you had the pleasure of hearing her speak. She is a dear friend and a wonderful human. And she's going to say, you're going to cry when you introduce me again, because I usually do. So she means so much to so many of us. And she's a woman who helps people through their death journey, helps us all prepare for death. She has a great course, Life or Death Matters. I've done it. It's fantastic. And she's a death doula. She's a life cycle celebrant. I can go on forever. But I would like to honor Julie with just a great thank you for taking the time to come to Barry's Bay to speak and share in this event with us, and to give us the opportunity to learn from her great wisdom. Thank you, Julie. For some water.
Thank you. Human beings are naturally solution-oriented. It is in our nature to solve problems so that we can adapt to new environments and challenges and prevent stagnation or getting stuck in one place. Imagine if our Neanderthal ancestors hadn't figured out how to make fire, or if doctors hadn't developed germ theory, or if antibiotics were never invented. It is fair to say humanity would eventually succumb to hypothermia or infection. When we run into problems, we naturally want to fix them. Although pain, whether physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, is a part of the human experience, most of us will do everything to avoid it. For those of you here who have experienced the devastation of loss of a loved one, you know how all-encompassing the pain of grief can be. And if you have experienced the depths of profound loss, you will also be acutely familiar with the instinct to flee from the pain, whether by shutting down, keeping busy, numbing with alcohol or drugs, or trying desperately to carry on as before. The intensity takes us by surprise, and we question whether this pain that we are experiencing is the expected and normal response to loss, or whether we are literally going crazy. And I use that term because it's the one I hear most often. And then if we have been led to believe that there are stages to grief or steps or tasks to follow, we will certainly assume we are doing it all wrong, because this grief we are experiencing is chaotic, it's devastating and disorienting, and we cannot, for the life of us, manage to follow a linear path. We tell ourselves things like, If I could just stop crying all the time, I would be better. I just need to get past this stage of anger so I can start to accept my loss. I must be doing this wrong because I'm still crying 3 weeks after my wife has died. And even I should be able to handle this better. If only it were that simple. From counseling hundreds of grieving folks who have come to me desperately seeking relief, I know one thing to be true. There are no solutions to grief, and there is certainly no end to it. And this truth terrifies people. And so my role as a grief counselor is not at all what most people think. The bereaved reach out when they feel they are at the end of their rope, and also believe they are doing this grieving thing incorrectly or for too long. They want me to fix something that is unfixable. This idea that their grief is abnormal often comes from the things well-meaning friends and family, and sometimes even strangers, say to them in an impossible attempt to make them feel better. I will tell you that I usually disappoint people at first, and some get downright frustrated with me when I explain to them that my role is not to minimize, change, fix, or distract them from their grief. Instead, I do something radical and unconventional. I do the opposite of what people desire and expect of me. It is both simple and complicated, and I know for certain it is the only way. Now, it took some time for me to put into practice what I instinctively knew to be true about the pain of grief, and yet I too, as a fledgling therapist, felt I had to be providing solutions and concrete tasks and step-by-step instructions for those who were bereaved. I mean, that is what was expected of me. And then one day, I decided to throw caution to the wind and create a space where the most primal, stifled, and deepest grief was welcomed. To do that, it was paramount that those in my care felt safe enough to trust that relief could be found in the suffering as opposed to outside of it. For it is in the suffering, and only in the suffering, that transformation can occur. In fact, the more we strive to temper, suppress, avoid, or dismiss our grief, the more suffering we will endure. But to turn towards the pain feels counterintuitive. It takes tremendous courage, a circle of support, and a strong belief that we will not die from our grief, for us to sit with and fully embrace it. It is through this deep dive into suffering that we learn how to carry grief indefinitely. Only by surrendering to it, all of it, can we potentially do something meaningful with it. This is where things get tricky. In a culture that is death and grief phobic, you might have discovered that bereavement is a very isolating place to be. Your mourning is like a billboard to everyone else that one day they too will lose someone they deeply love. Your grief is like a loudspeaker telling them that they too will one day die, and the people they love will be left grappling with the loss. This reality is overwhelming for most people, and the very reason why contemplating our mortality is not something most of us do. It terrifies us, and so even though we know we will all die, we cleverly deny it and focus on anything but this reality. As a result, we fail some of the most vulnerable members of our community, the bereaved. The brave ones who, kicking and screaming, wake up each day to this harsh reality of their loss. The ones whose hearts continue beating in their brokenness and whose lungs still remember how to breathe, even though this grief can be so suffocating. And through our own discomfort, we try to do the impossible, and we encourage them to focus on the positive things, to distract themselves from their pain, as if that were even possible, and to get over it, as if that were the ultimate goal. So what is a grieving person to do? Simply, we must believe and defend our right to grieve. When met with those who are desperately uncomfortable in our grief, we must retreat from them for a while until we find our footing. With that said, complete isolation isn't the answer either, and so seeking out others who get us and get this profound experience of bereavement will create the much needed village that will sustain us in the hardest moments. This is where grief support groups can be a lifeline. The difficulty is that when hit with the tsunami of grief, we want to hide from the world because we fear being seen as just a shell of our once happy self that existed before this devastation. This need to hide goes back to the anguish of being met by a society that does not want to acknowledge grief's existence. So there are really two ways to learn this art of carrying grief. One, you can fight its existence and learn ways to avoid, deny, and minimize it, and therefore make others more comfortable. Or you can surrender to the suffering with curiosity, courage, and determination, trusting that grief knows the way and will eventually lead you to moments of joy and gratitude. The latter may seem most challenging in the short term. However, it is the only way that grief can eventually make space for joy. The other way, which most people choose, only leads to ongoing suffering. There is no way around grief. The only way is through. And I want to be very clear that through doesn't mean that you get to the other side and find your old self waiting there. Going through grief means that you allow it to show up however it needs to on any given day or in any given moment, and you stay present with it. You make your grief the priority and you let it guide you even when each tiny step may come with tremendous fear. Little by little, as Dr. Joanne Cacciatore describes, your emotional muscles of grief will strengthen, and this weight won't feel as heavy. The terrain will be less treacherous. And yes, it is true, grief never, ever goes away. However, when met with courage, love, compassion, presence, patience, and trust, it can coexist with and teach us about the most wonderful parts of life, like happiness and gratitude and hope. Perhaps this is grief's purpose. By diving into our deepest pain, we eventually resurface and we greet love and life as the holy, sacred gifts that they are. Thank you.
So, do you have your tickets ready? We're going to start passing out butterflies. They're going to come around in teams. And once you have your butterflies, it's very warm today, so they will move quickly. If they're not already moving by the time they get to you, that can happen. We have some extras. Occasionally, we have butterflies who don't fly right away or who don't fly at all. Please come and see us if you need a replacement butterfly. We're happy to give you one. So they'll ask for your tickets, and once they have your tickets, they'll give you that number of butterflies. We have a poem that we read every year. Following the poem, we're going to have a solo violin. Violinist, excuse me, choking on my own words, play for us. So I'll read the poem now while the butterflies are being handed out. And then once I'm done, if you have your butterflies or if they're moving, you can release them anytime. Our soloist will play. We remember them at the rising of the sun and at its going down. We remember them at the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter. We remember them at the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring. We remember them at the shining of the sun and in the warmth of the summer. We remember them at the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn. We remember them at the beginning of the year and at its end. We remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us, and we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now part of us, and we remember them. Everyone have butterflies?
Can you release one for me, Paige, please?